I'm honored to have been invited to speak. And I've spoken a lot, but I always come in with the, you know how there's like an anxiety, so it'll take me a little bit. No matter how many times I have spoken before groups, taught a class, I always have had some anxiety. But I am honored actually to have been invited to speak. But I think we discussed this in terms of the holidays. And we're coming upon the holidays, which are a really stressful time in general. You know, to go shopping, to deal with the crowds, find your money, spend too much money, all kinds of things go on. But at Christmas time, it's a time that we remember other Christmases with our loved ones, and so now without them. But this year has even been, and last year, a greater experience with grief, in that we have lost a lot. We've lost our sense of freedom. We've lost some friends and loved ones. We've lost income. We've lost jobs. We have, like children, I was reading, I over-prepare, so I was reading, and I was talking about children. And they're having a problem today because they haven't been socialized for a couple of years. They've been with their family. And there's a lot more problems with children than we should anticipate that. And that was something I said, you know, makes sense. I hadn't thought about it, but it does make sense. But there are so many types of losses, and I think the thing that you need to know about grief, it's not a state, it's a process. And it can go on, was it in the introduction for a while, or, and it never really leaves. No matter how much, and I've done a lot of, grief work and stuff, the people that died many, many years ago, I still miss them. But I also continued on with my life, done things in their memory, hopefully in their honor, and probably some other things that I probably don't want to talk about, because it's not good to talk about those who have passed away. But I also just do want to share, I think it's really, to me, very exciting about doing this here in a spiritualist church, because we do, and we've shown communication with the, as it says in the so-called dead, but that gives us a great deal of peace. And I know that actually my introduction to spiritualism was that I went by chance to a conference at Casa Dega, and it had been, I had the loved one of my life had passed unexpectedly and too young. And so, and I wasn't going there because of that. I just wanted to see what was going on in Casa Dega, and because of some of my other interests. So I went, and they had a sign-up sheet that you could go to meet a medium. And I went, and I did sign up, and the medium actually had a cancellation. She said, "Oh, you can come right now." So her name is Arlene Sikora, and as of the last time I've checked, she's out in, I think, Las Vegas, Nevada. So I'm hoping she gets a lot of messages on hitting the right machines and stuff, but who knows. Anyway, and she said to me, "There's someone here who wants you to know that he didn't know he was going to die." And I only had said to one person, a friend, somebody he knew, and we were talking, that I think, that Dan knew he was going to die, and therefore he got closer to me, and we were doing things and making plans, and I knew a lot of things about what he was, afraid of and stuff, and so and we were talking about when I was returning from my ski trip, that we would plan to live together and all that stuff. Anyway, unfortunately, Dan passed away when just before I returned, and he was running. He was very athletic, and one of his friends told me that, or our friends said that he did wind sprints, which means he would run until he ran out of wind. Well, also, he did not know, but he did know this, but it didn't stop him. He had gone to NASA. He wanted to be an astronaut, and he didn't pass the physical exam because he had abnormality in one of his coronary arteries, and that would have been a problem. He didn't really have, so anyway, he was running and he really had a sudden coronary death. And it actually was at UCF in a parking lot. A student found him, and they called 911, but he was dead on the spot. So I was very, very angry, which is when we'll go through a little of the stages initially of, how could you do this to me? We had all these plans, and then and I was there, and that's, what came with Arlene telling me that he wants you to know he didn't know he was going to die. And I mean, I almost fell off my chair because no one knew except this one other person that that I had said that. And so it really, for me, I mean, every once in a while after that, I'd say, oh, what's going on with this, with Spirit? And I say, Jean, remember Dan. I mean, there's no way anybody else would have known. So that was my introduction to spiritualism. Of course, I had one of the best spiritual, and I would say she's not a guide, but she certainly felt like a guide, but medium, psychic person going. So that's how I got introduced to spiritualism and learning more about grief and death and dying. But grief, as we said earlier, is a mental or emotional suffering or distress caused by loss or regret. It's a process. And so it's not a state. You're not going to be that way forever, but there are things that you can do. It can be related to a divorce or a relationship breakup, coping with life-threatening illnesses in the present. You have grief because you're not living your life as you would like. Losing a job, unemployment, loss of financial stability, coping with that or not, a miscarriage, retirement, death of a pet, or a loss of a pet. These are all significant events in our life. Loss of a cherished dream. Oh, I always wanted to be a ballerina, but I broke my ankle. This is an example. I didn't want to be a ballerina, but if I did, I probably would have broken my ankle. A loved one's serious illness, and many of us have been through a lot of that, and an ongoing loss of friendship. Things happen between people, and it's like a death. Loss of safety after a trauma. And that is one of the biggest things that we had, and some people in nursing had studied, were the results of disasters, hurricanes, like after Hugo, and how people lost everything. And that is a major, major area, and it doesn't leave you. And so, even though you may work on your grief, it still will raise its ugly, whatever. But we do have some strength, and I really believe, and I sincerely believe, that the stuff that we do here and our ability to get the support and encouragement and the ability to hear and greet our loved ones is truly amazing. I mean, I still, there's always that little twinge, but it's real. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. So I thank the Spiritualist Church of Awareness for being here. I found it with Spirit's guiding me here because I knew I had met somebody at Casa Diego, and she had said to me, you need to go, she was seeing like a Bible, and I should be involved with a church of some kind. She said, it could be any church. So anyway, I was actually looking for Christ Church Unity because I knew about that. But I did know that there was this church here, and unbelievably, I found my way in this back road to get here. And I know Spirit, guided me. Also, I had been away from the church for a while. And last spring, I woke up in April, and I was feeling good. I wasn't tired. I didn't have any. And I said, the Spirit said, go to the church. Go to the church of a Spiritual Church of Awareness. I got dressed and I came, and I haven't left. But it's been a great, great source of strength, of love, and a great deal of sort of like, it's not conditional love. It's unconditional love here. And you just have to allow those vibrations and those things to come and join you each time we're here. Anyway, back to grief. We'll talk a little bit about that since that's what we were basing on. In the grief process, I have to watch the time. Oh, that is the real time. Somehow I was looking that it was 5 to 4. It's 20 after 11. How long do I go to?
Probably about 11:35.
Okay. Well, I need a little bit. Yeah, that's good. Anyway, there are the stages of grief. And it's actually, when I was first doing this, I knew that Kubler-Ross had worked on death and dying. Well, she actually worked on with another author on the stages of grief. And they're very similar. People go through with denial. Like, this can't be happening. And when Dan had passed, it was good that we had the funeral, and I had gone to visit I went to California with his family. If I hadn't seen him, I knew I would never believe he wasn't gone, in terms of physicalness. So I was very happy. I mean, not happy, but, it made it okay, because I did know that I wasn't dealing with, crazies. And so, but it was happening. I really didn't want it to happen, but it did happen. And then there was anger, and I was angry, as I told you. I wanted to know, how could, and so I had my anger, and even at one time, when I was at home, and I just screamed. I was in my house, and I put a pillow, and I just screamed. And then, I don't really remember bargaining. It was one of the steps. I was sad for a while, but I also did go for help. I did go for therapy and getting help, and then, of course, eventually I found this wonderful church. And at this time, I could honestly say that it's acceptance. I don't like it. I mean, I really wish Dan were here. He was younger. He should be here. However, I am at peace with what happened, and very grateful that I did have those experiences. The next thing I think that's important to know, and I'm going to go a little bit at myself, is that I did bring here, and what I really think, many of you may know, there's a thing called the Holmes and Ray Stress Rating Scale. And this was developed by the Navy to work, actually, they did research and studied young recruits, or I don't know what the recruits called in the Navy, but the young guys. And these are life change events, and to study, which ones. The first one is death of a spouse. It's like on the scale of the one that's the most thing. And they go all the way down. They actually have 43 of them. But marital separation from a mate. Well, divorce is second, then just separation. Then the fourth one is detention in jail, which I think should probably be a number big one. Although maybe death of a spouse is why they're in jail. So I have to think about that for a while. A major personal injury or illness, a life event, marriage. And one of the things that these events are, they're change. And what's happening is there's changes in our energy field and the vibrations. And so when you have a change, your vibrations change. And what you need to do with this is to sort of go with the flow, but not to try to fight it, because that's when you'll have some difficulties. And a lot of these, I think when you go to jail, it's going to take a while to understand the meaning of this event, and it's hard. But the others, and I think are valuable, being fired from work, or even just being laid off is a major event. Retirement, a major change in health. Pregnancy can be a big major life event. Obviously it's expensive. It's changing everybody's identities in the family with different roles and relationships. And in this, there's a lot of things in the pattern and organization of our energy fields. And that's something, even though here may be happening to someone on this side of the room, we do have those vibrations, and hopefully sometimes we're in tune and can be of help. But what's good about here is we're all coming together with positive intentions, which really makes a difference in our energy fields. And I know that's a little bit off of my grief and mourning, but it really does help us face the changes that we have. So with the grieving process, number one, it's highly individual. No one here will grieve exactly the same way as anybody else in this room. And I think you need to be one with your own self, as well as with your loved ones and friends. And that there is no right or wrong way. You can do it wrong for a while, as long as you're doing something, and you'll learn from that. But people have their different ways, and we cannot judge. We just need to be able to listen to people in this time and be accepting of them in their time. Don't stand there and go, You know, you need to be a little bit more being with them. But the grieving process depends on many other factors: personality and coping style. Different personalities have different ways of coping. I mean, Al Capone had a way of coping. So that's not the best, although it took care of one of his stressors. I always remember somebody had said something about, about there was like, you carry a big stick, and Al Capone said, carry a big stick, but carry a gun too. So, anyway, sorry. And the life experiences teach you many things. Also, there are factors in terms of faith and beliefs. And that's this time, as there's many times people challenge their faith and say, how could you do this to me, God? The stupid church, why did this happen? I've been good, I come and I contribute, and blah, blah, and all that. Who knows? But that is a real experience. But the fact is that faith and beliefs do really win at the end. There is a way that faith is an energy, and beliefs are part of the energy systems, and we just have to work with that. And I'm big on energy systems and vibrations, which is kind of nice coming to this church. But I think that is really important. And of course, what you sort of put out, you get back. And so it's important. But your faith and your belief in, even if you just want to believe in an energy field, that's okay with God, because it does work. And then there's also the significance of the loss. I mean, some losses are heavy. I mean, you lose your home and your family in Katrina. I mean, that's big. And you just don't go wandering off and looking for La La Land, although that may work for a while. But you need to be able to face it. You do need to have support systems. And the other, I think I said earlier, it takes time. There's no timetable for grieving, and I still grieve Dan's death. Allow the process to unfold naturally, and then the other thing is to continue on with your life. Now in part of the grief presentation, I have to look at my page numbers, but I'm going to go with this one next. One of the things that happens is a thing called complicated grief. Grief is a normal, expected set of emotions that can occur after the loss of a loved one. However, some people experience a more significant, longer-lasting level of grief, and this is known as complicated grief. And I recently worked with somebody, actually it was here, I was sort of timing, was actually a friend had asked me to go see somebody, and she had unresolved grief. Her daughter had died 32 years ago, and it was still something that really, it was unresolved. And her way that she was living, she wasn't being productive in her life. She was, there were a lot of things undone. I did go to see her, and we did talk, and I do therapeutic touch, which helps balance the energy field. And I'm going to make it very short, but today she is doing much better than the day that I went there. And she's, one of the things, as I was working with her, I'd go every week and I'd do, my healing, and we'd talk. And she started picking things up. She was organizing things. She went back to some hobby she had had. All she was doing was sitting in a recliner, eating, getting quite obese. And she may still be, but she wasn't moving. We eventually had it that, she did have PT, but she had her walker and I had her stand. And then I'd have her lift her legs just to get, I said, you need to move, you stagnate. Anyway, her grief, I still think, is complicated. However, she is engaging in life. Sadly, thereafter, I think it was her son-in-law, he passed. And he had been a strong guy, and he had heart disease, which wasn't known, and he went for help. And he was actually, I think, being considered for a transplant, but he died. And so that was another one. But she's still, participating in life. It is very sad, but I mean, how much can you get? But and it's complicated. And so, and there will be, exacerbate, you feel grief, you'll slow down for a while, and then something will hit you. I remember for a long time with one of my dogs, I couldn't walk down a dog food aisle, or I would stay away from certain events because they remind you of somebody. And the big one coming is our holidays. How are we going to celebrate our holidays? Well, you need to celebrate your holidays how you like to celebrate your holidays. It probably would not be good to go inside your closet and just have some food and get back out in life in January. There are many things that you can do, and one is recognize it. Accept that your loved one is gone, but do what he or she may have wanted you to do, and what it may come about. You will do something. You may want to create, like go to the cemetery with flowers and talk to your loved one. I do a lot of that kind of talking. I don't go to cemeteries too often, but because spirits wherever. But it really does work. My sister is one who had long-lasting bitterness after the loss of my niece. We unfortunately lost my niece very quickly. She was 18 or 19, developed acute leukemia. And this is where my stuff, when you saw thanatology, I was working at Cornell, New York Hospital in the School of Nursing, and they had the guy, the individual working on thanatology, which is the study of death and dying and grieving processes. And so, of course, I get life experience there. One of the things that it taught me, and I think I sent it just to Annette personally, was that it helped me be able to say goodbye. And what it taught me, and I would tell you, if you love somebody now, make sure they know you love them. Don't keep it a secret. And for many of us, it was hard for us, particularly in my family. I mean, I'll use my family, but it's quite a family. And so when Janet was in memorial, it wasn't when she was in the process of dying, she was in the process of getting chemo and stuff. I knew I had to tell her I loved her. It wasn't a thing that we did in our family. So I said to Janet, Janet, I want you to know I love you. And she broke down in tears. And I get teary over this, and but after that, she told other people. She went and told her father she loved him, and my sister, who was and a couple people know her. My sister actually was quite a, complicated person, but she was. I don't know if she did at the end. Did say things. She did love people, and one of the things she did say when she was passing, she said, "I wish I had been a better parent." Mm-hmm. Well, a little late, Stella, but and she did the best she could because she had the same mother I had, so I know she had a lot of complicated experiences. My tractors, I don't want to. But anyway, Stella had a lot of complicated grief. She was mad, angry about that. And but I just want to go back to Janet, and I had been learning about death and dying, and there was a movie that said make sure the people you know that you love them before they die. And you can't. The movie was a husband and wife, and they had a fight. The husband drives off, kills himself. It was an accident. And so it really showed the drama in that. And that hit me. And so that's when I told Janet I loved her, because we knew we didn't have a lot of time, although we wanted more. And but with Janet, and I'll tell you one more, is after she died, there were two things that she did to show us, and I think helps with grieving and resolving some of that. Was my sister, they had a code, because Janet was in New York and they were in Pennsylvania. She was at Memorial Sloan Kettering. Anyway, if their people were coming home or going, they would call and ring the phone twice, because it was long distance phone calls and no time. Those are quite heavy. So the day after Janet died, within a couple of days, Stella was outside and there were 2 claps of thunder. It was a sunny day.
Wow.
And I get chills. Now, for me, I had a dream of Janet, and in my dream, Janet was there, and she said to me, Jeannie, although I think she always called me Jeannie because we were only 10 years apart. But anyway, she said, "I want you to know I'm okay, because I have no more chemo, no more bone marrows, and everything is okay, and you don't need to worry about me anymore, I'm okay. And, you know, there was a little bit more, but what she did, and this is in literature, she actually walked like into clouds behind like a chain link fence. She went on the other side and, you know, went off. And that was, you know, I did have that experience. And I know you'll read in some of the books about after-death experiences and things like that. And it really was very profound for me. I still wish she would come back, but she didn't. So, I mean, we still have those kinds of things. But anyway, one of the things here, complicated goes, is, and I think this is important, the difficulty remembering positive memories of your loved ones. So far, I feel fortunate. I have a lot of positive memories. I do have one sister, though. Few. And hopefully, she's receiving good support on the other side. And I do know that in the processes, because I've done some study in you know, level of people, you know, different stages after death, and I do know that there are, you know, she is getting work and help and support in the book on souls, and so I do know that for a fact, because there is peace in that. But the only thing is, if you don't deal with grief, it doesn't get better, it gets worse. But obviously all of you are dealing with and accepting the things that go along with grief, and that you're here, and there's lots of support. I just would like to sort of just take a moment, if we can, and think of our loved one. Take a deep breath in and out. In and out. Just take moments in the day or in the morning and try to meditate and bring your loved one into your thoughts and send love, and you will be getting love back. And it is